Today's guest is a director and choreographer, best known for his work on Julie and the Phantoms and the J Team. Please welcome to the Zoom, Joe Tuliao. Hello.
What's up?
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing so good in high spirits. You already know the vibes.
I love it. I love it. Well, first of all, thank you so much for doing this and being here.
Of course, the pleasure is mine. I always love being in your company and having the
Oh,
conversation with you when we were working on the J team. So I can't wait to share this with the world.
yay. Well, we always start behind the resume by talking about how we met.
Okay.
And for the first time we met on Zoom when I was in
Mhm.
quarantine. So basically, Joe was the assistant choreographer on the J team. I was in quarantine for 2 weeks alongside Carrington, Kiara, and JoJo. Joe and our amazing choreographer, Heather, taught us all the choreography for the movie. And Joe led 7 a.m. yoga on Zoom. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but my mom would do it behind the camera.
Yes, yes. I think also Carrington's mom or whatever, like it was so funny.
What was that like meeting us and teaching us everything on Zoom?
It was an experience. It was definitely something that I have not done, but I was definitely up for the challenge. During the pandemic, Zoom kind of became like this whole new thing for
Mhm.
everyone to be meeting.
Yeah.
And so like to get across the energy of
Mhm.
making you guys comfortable, learning all the steps, and was definitely a challenge, but I knew it had to be done in order for us to create this synergy to
Yeah.
making this amazing movie.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah. I thought it worked out so well. And it was so nice to get to rehearsal and already know the choreography and just get to like jump right in.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah, no, yeah, I love that, and even like the warm-ups that we did, I'm a firm believer that we need to kind of like prime our mental and our body first to then receive all this choreography and information. So it
Mhm.
kind of just like holds it, it kind of marinates it even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and your energy at 7 a.m. was so nice. Like, oh,
Oh,
what I would give for another one of those warm-ups. But it was so funny. We had like dumbbells and yoga mats sent
oh my
to our
gosh, yeah.
rooms. And I remember I was like, oh
Oh,
gosh.
they're serious. I that wasn't on our end. That was
No, I know.
production. I was like, oh, they're serious about their conditioning. Okay, great.
Yeah. We didn't just do yoga in the morning. We had like little boot camp
Hmm.
workouts. It was so wild. So wild. And now the choreography in the movie is nominated for an Emmy. So I guess it did work out.
That was wild.
What was your reaction to finding that out?
I was just messaging my friends that same morning saying, because it was November 1st, and I was like, good news is on its way. And literally an hour later, Heather messages me and she says that we're nominated for the first family and children program on the Emmys. And I'm like, what? That is crazy. Also, because we'll have this conversation about manifesting.
Uh-huh.
Leading up to this moment, like I have been just visualizing more of the accomplishments I want to achieve, and an Emmy was one of them. And I've just been visualizing myself holding an Emmy or whatever achievements I want to do. And it's crazy how like the steps have been kind of showing
Yeah.
me that. And also for me, being a Canadian, knowing that, oh, I don't have to be in America to achieve these things,
Uh-huh.
to achieve accomplishments, like because there's so many American productions that are coming to Canada, Vancouver, especially Hollywood North now, and creating these opportunities for us, which I'm so grateful for. And it kind of expanded my vision of the future of where I want to go. So
I
yeah.
love that. Okay, where are you from?
I am born and raised here in Vancouver, BC, Canada.
What was your childhood
And
like?
my childhood, after a couple of years of diving in deep self-therapy, and I would say now that my childhood was very unique. I was brought up in a spiritual household from the get-go. kind of like I want to say like my parents manifested me into this plane because they couldn't have another child after my older brother was
Uh-huh.
born. So it was like a 7 year gap. We have a 7 year gap. And so they were wanting, another child. And they finally manifested me into the picture. Ever since then, they just kind of brought me into the church and basked in the gratitude of my existence. And
Oh, beautiful.
um, yeah, I've always been around loving parents, though growing up, I felt kind of different in a way, going to school and kind of misinterpreting what life is through my lens, because the things that I was interested in weren't the stuff that all the other regular children were
Yeah.
into. Like I was just more into like more of the spiritual things. And but also at the same time I was obsessed with Spice Girls and like like Britney Spears, you know what I mean? Like just like more like the arts. Going back, like my parents didn't really understand that side as well of me expressing myself more in the creative field, because back then that wasn't really seen as a way to go about with life as a career or whatnot. And so it was just more of a hobby, I would say,
Mhm.
that they would see it as, and I would see it as well, because here in Vancouver, we didn't really have a platform um or like an industry yet.
Mhm.
So growing up, I didn't really have any big mentors in the city that were doing the things that I wanted to do that I see on TV
Yeah.
or whatnot. So I saw it as like it was a far
Mhm.
achievement to do. I kind of just played it small, I would say. I've always played it small when that my childhood was just like, okay, cool, limit my uniqueness, limit my
Wow.
shine, because it was deemed as too different and not in the regular world.
Do you feel like you're still working through that now, or do you feel like you're on the other side of that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely on the other side of that. Quarantine and pandemic has really helped shape me and
Yeah.
a lot of people. I would say, yes, I'm definitely on the other side. But what I've realized is that when we expand through life and want to achieve more things, we're definitely stepping into more unknown territory.
Mhm.
There's always going to be like imposter syndrome that's going to take play, because the place that you were comfortable with, like it's
Yeah,
easier to stay in that area than to go into the unknown of not knowing what's going to come. but
totally.
you, but like your heart just like knows that it wants to expand and do bigger things in life. So yeah, I would say I'm definitely on the other side to answer your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. What made you fall in love with dance, and when did it go from a hobby to a career?
Okay. I don't know. I can't even put an age on it. I just remember just watching it on TV, like either that's Britney Spears or like the Spice Girls or NSYNC, like the boy band 90s era day. I've definitely fell in love with that and like kind of mimicking that and creating fun choreography with my cousins and
Uh-huh.
performing that in front of my family. I'm sure like you've done that too. Just kind of like being the entertainment for the family at parties and stuff like that. And then it kind of just evolved through high school where like, okay, cool, I want to take this more seriously. Let's take dance classes. My first dance class, I showed up in sandals and cargo shorts, and I was like, so bad. But I was in love. I was just like, oh, this is where I need to be. Like it was just so funny because I was like the first, I felt like such a rookie there.
Uh-huh.
Everyone was so good.
How old were you when you took your first dance class?
I was grade 3.
Oh,
Am I in there?
wow. That's
Was
really
that
young.
what is that? 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So your
But
parents were supportive.
yes, because it was my god sister that was the teacher. So
Oh,
yeah, that's where the connection came through. And so I started taking classes from her, and she eventually opened up a dance studio. So I stuck with her throughout high school. In high school, that's when I really got involved into dance, and like I ran the dance squad. Also did choir in high school, so that kind of just opened me up to singing and the whole like musical theater world. But again, going back, it was just seen as a hobby
uh-huh.
until a couple years after high school and trying to do post-secondary in fashion, which I dropped out because I needed I felt in my heart that I needed to honor myself and fulfill something that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I could get into a nice story for you, like a nice
Yeah.
breakthrough. Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
great. My parents and I were, driving back home from church, and I told them this was me at, like, 19, and I told them straight up, I was like, "I think I'm gonna do dance seriously. I think I'm gonna do it as a career, like, I'm gonna go for it." And they, like, turned to me in the back seat. I was like they, like, totally shut it down. They were like, "No, that's not a career, yada, yada, yada," and I just bawled. But I took that as an opportunity at that moment. Like, I was just like, I'm an Aries. I'm bringing in the zodiac signs in, but I'm an Aries. You tell me no, I do the opposite.
Yeah.
That was just more fuel to the fire for me, that I was like, "Oh, I'm going to prove you wrong." That was the initiating factor of like, "I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this. This is my purpose, and I'm gonna show you." And so ever since then, like, the things that needed to be aligned for me to be where I am today just aligned. And I just had to take that, leap of faith and that trust,
Yeah.
even though I didn't know where the hell I was going.
Well, it's like the quote, "Jump and the net will appear," right?
Yes, yes, 100%. And I always tell this to my students or my friends, like, who are artists, like, we chose this life to be an artist, and we're always gonna be constantly in the unknown, not knowing where we're going. But the first thing that we did was that we listened to our heart, knowing that we wanted to honor something and create things from the first place, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very interesting, so
Like you said, we're always living in the discomfort, but yet that is the comfort
Mhm.
to us. Like, it's
Yeah.
way more, for me at least, like, I would much rather be living in this place of discomfort because I'm diving into the deep end
Yes.
with all of me than know that I'm holding myself back.
Right.
That is way more,
Yes.
that's not the place that I wanna live in.
100%. I always tell myself and my friends, like, if you were on your deathbed, what is this that you want to look back on, the things that you've done, the legacy that you've left behind,
Right.
like, what you know what I mean? And no regrets, you know what I mean? I don't wanna have any regrets when on my deathbed saying that, "Oh, I should have done this," or like, I wish I could have done that," you know what I mean? So, you might as well do it now.
For someone who's in that place of knowing what their passions are, knowing what their dreams are, but really they don't know how to kind of proceed or take that leap, what advice would you give? Or someone who doesn't have the support from their parents?
Mhm. There's different remedies. Let me put this in there. There's different ways to approach this. Analyze where you're at in life. Analyze who the people are around you, what the conversations you're having, and what the conversations you're having with yourself. You know, kind of all again, it all starts with like yourself, like because you are the creator of your reality. So it's a matter of taking that initiative step to go within first and to quiet the noise around you to then reflect your outer kind of reality or like the you know what I mean? Like, so like when you have more of a clear head, then you're able to take more inspired action
Mm.
when you receive that inspired action either to create more videos or to take a dance class, to take an acting class, to message this person, you know, like like when
Yeah.
you have a clear mind, when you have more of a clear direction of where you need to go. So you kind of just need to quiet down the noise first.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest. And the things will align for you.
Mhm. So after that conversation with your parents,
Mhm.
what did you then do?
Yes. So the first step that I did was just I would for me in my city, I just took dance classes so I could get my name out there more, to get my so people are more familiar with who I am.
Mm.
And it's kind of like networking, you know what I mean? So like you need to meet other people in order to create this momentum in your brand and who you are, Joe Tuliao or Julia Marley. You know what I mean? You need to create these connections.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, then another opportunity came through of, oh yeah, there's Joe Tuliao who could probably sub your class. And then it
Mhm.
became to subbing classes and then getting a daily weekly spot at a dance studio, and then you start creating like just momentum, and people are more aware of your choreography and start posting your videos on Instagram, and then it just creates it's like a snowball effect, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that becomes into another, and one opportunity leads to another, and then a person sees your video from across the world and they're like, hey, can you teach a workshop here? So you know what I mean, then I got to teach around the world. And
Really?
then
Where have you
yes,
traveled to teach?
so I've done a tour in China, all over Canada, a couple of spots in the US.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, like it just brought me to all these places to experience, and it was really cool, especially when you go into a another country like China, and like the language barrier is not there. It's there, but like it was so fascinating when I was just teaching, like movement is like a language in itself. They
Yes,
understood
totally.
that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I was teaching the same way I was teaching here to in China, and they just understood. It was just an energy. It was just really special. And so yeah, English is not the actual language. It's just the
Right.
body movement understanding of that. It was really cool. It's so special. But then ever since after choreographing and teaching around the world, oh my God, that's weird for me to say that, but I should take pride in that. Hey,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I definitely wanted to try something new. So then I got into the industry where I got scouted from my agents at a dance performance here in Vancouver, and um, I ended up going to the audition for the agency and got in, and the rest was history. I kind of just got into my first movie and doing all these
What
things.
was your first movie?
It was mostly Ghostly. It's the franchise from Goosebumps,
Cool.
and yeah, that was really cool because I've watched like Goosebumps when I was little, and so to be in a Goosebumps movie was really satisfying,
Yeah.
like full circle. Um, so that happened, and then we did Descendants and all these other TV shows,
So you were in which Descendants movies?
2 and 3.
Nice. What was that
Descendants
audition
2 and 3.
process like?
Oh, it was huge. Like we were at the big like studio, um, and there was like more than 100 dancers there, and we just I don't know. It was really special because those big productions are pretty rare, and to see a bunch of Canadian dancers just living the life of
Yeah.
just a dancer here is really cool. And yeah, I would say, and working with Kenny Ortega, and then Jamal Sims came through for the third Descendants. Like
Mhm.
that was very special, and it's very interesting how the universe works in a way where they they show you, people that I admire. Like I admire them because that's where I want to go. Like
Mhm.
they're like they're like little like how do I say this? How would you say this? Because I don't want to idolize people, but like they're,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way, we're like, okay, cool. Like this is Jamal Sims or this is Kenny Ortega. Like this is the world for you. You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, cool. Like it gives me like a target, kind
It's
of
like
like
a
a
seed of
direction.
belief, right?
Yes. Yes. 100%.
That's a blessing. And if
Yes.
you don't have those people in your orbit, it's important to find those people online
Yes.
and have them
100%.
in your orbit in that way. But having those people literally sharing the same air as them is really powerful.
Yes. And it just shows you that it's definitely achievable. It's a world.
Yes. Right.
Um yeah. Yeah, it was very special because after Descendants 3, like that led me to my connection with Jamal, who's just so amazing, like mind, body, spirit, just like how he carries himself, what he stands for in the dance industry, the community, the LGBTQ, being in RuPaul's, and I just really saw myself in him and where I want to go in
Yeah,
life and what I want to
yeah.
achieve and be. And
Is he a mentor to
uh,
you?
yes, 100%. And he really helped me get my O1 visa to work in America.
Wow, cool.
And so I'm super grateful for him and what he
Oh.
has done for me. And yeah, so yeah, that's that.
And then when did Julie come along?
Okay, so Julie and the Phantoms, that happened before the pandemic. That was like 2019. There was a big audition process that Paul Becker and Tori and Louise Frazky did here in Vancouver with Kenny Ortega was there too. Big dance call here in Vancouver, and I didn't know it would be this big, like the huge success that it came with. Being in that 6 month process,
Uh-huh. So
being a
you just
part of,
went to the initial audition?
yes, the initial audition here in Vancouver,
Was it an
and
open call?
open call. It was a long lineup.
Yeah.
People from Toronto came through, Winnipeg, everyone from Canada came through. Um, and yeah, it was really cool seeing again everyone from Canada just like migrate into this one audition and seeing all the talent that is here.
So for
Um,
someone who doesn't know what an open call experience is
Mhm.
like, what is that day like for you?
Oh, it's hours and hours and hours of waiting. A little anxiety. It's honestly something truly special that I always need to remind myself that we get to experience these types of auditions. Like it's rare when these happen, especially in Vancouver or Canada. To see a lot of dancers kind of come together doing what they love to do and striving for something that means a lot to them. Um, and yeah, it's just like this synergy that is created and like the support that you get from others too when people are hyping you up from the side that other
Yeah.
dancers, kind of, it's so inspiring and amazing energy to be around.
What was the dance that you learned?
I think it's the Hollywood scene, like the life is good
Mhm.
situation
Uh-huh.
with Shane. Super hard, more technical. I'm not a crazy technical dancer, but sometimes you gotta fake it to make it and just live
Yeah.
your best life.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so we did the damn thing. We just did the damn thing, and it was really fun. Um, and then going on to the creative process, being a skeleton dancer, um, on for like the 6 months was just great to know how everything was like created
Yeah.
and
So for
see.
someone who might not know what Skeleton Crew is, could you
Yes.
explain that?
So Skeleton Crew is a skeleton crew. Skeleton Crew is pretty much the creative team along with underneath the choreographer, associate choreographers, assistant choreographers, and then you have the skeleton crews where they try on some choreography on you guys and create the scene.
Hmm.
Either that's a scene or a phrase of choreography. And then we film a previs for the director or producers to see what's going on in that scene and what we workshopped in that rehearsal. And yeah, it just creates a language between the choreography department and also the direction, directors, the producers to kind of put the scene together.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it's a whole process. Like say like one scene like that has a dance number could be like a month's work of like skeleton crew.
Wow.
It could be, yeah, I mean it depends on like the how big the production is. So like we had like this great amount of time to put so much quality in there. But yeah, there were a lot of dancers in those scenes too, so it's a bit more complex and
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot.
Those videos are also really helpful for the dancers or actors who are going to come in.
Yes.
And because for us, I remember, learning especially comp 2, the I don't remember the da 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 da, you know that one?
Oh
That one.
my God.
Learning that on Zoom,
Um,
I was like, I
wow.
have no idea what this is supposed to look like, and I was just trying to do my best. But
I
once we got the
know.
skeleton crew videos and I was able to follow the girl who was like standing in for my character, I was like, oh
Okay.
my gosh. It
Right.
was so helpful, so
Yeah.
helpful. So those skeleton crew is like necessary.
It's so necessary. And we like I've noticed especially here in Canada, we are starting to get more dance scenes or movies or whatever. And kind of pitching, the skeleton crew to production and telling the importance of it,
Mhm.
um, is definitely still kind of like a dialogue that is
Yeah.
that's still shaping, but
Yeah.
it's just so important to the creative process,
Yeah.
100%. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this is just something that's cool about you being a part of Julie. And I don't know if I've told you this, but for me, the
Mhm.
J team was such a manifested experience in like 50,000 different ways. Like actually blows my mind if I really think about it. But
Scary. It's
I watched
yeah,
what?
it's scary. Like when you were telling me, I'm like, what?
Oh yeah, yeah, the story about the
People.
calendar,
Oh
crazy.
wow.
And that's literally one of like so many different manifestations. But I watched Julie and the Phantoms pre-pand when it came out, and I absolutely loved it. I
Mm,
I just felt such a connection to like that kind of storytelling, and it's exactly something that like I would want to be a part of, and it inspired me so much to see a show like that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to do." I just would say to so many people like, "This is the kind of show I'd want to be a part of XYZ." And then when I met all of you and so many people who were on J Team were a part of Julie, Kira was a dirty candy. It was such a I don't know, there was like really beautiful full circle alignment because
yeah.
like now I'm getting to be a part of this production and work with so many people who were a part of this show that means so much to me and really inspired me. And yeah, I don't know, it's like I love that you were a part of that show.
You know what I love, what I noticed was that your desire, like what you manifested to work on something like that, like you brought on the intention of working with good people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's like the one thing that we always have to remember is like your desires need to have like an intention behind it. And because you could get what you could get what you want, but then it's like, oh, maybe you're working with not the best people, you know what I mean? Like, and so yeah, I just noticed that when you were just talking. So I was like, great.
Oh, thank
Mhm.
you. It's not an accident who you end up in rooms with. And if you
Right.
lead with love and light and gratitude, you're going to attract the people who have the same values. And that's why I connected so much to you. And I love how like manifestation forward you are.
Yeah.
And you just like shine your light everywhere. And I love it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like life's too short not to shine, you know, and just love every experience that you get with each other, you know. So,
Yeah. I'm so interested to hear your answer to this with your spiritual background. How do you handle the rejection and the hardships of this journey?
well, it was definitely hard before because I lost my more of my spiritual side when I went to like school and all that stuff. Like, so I didn't really have that anchor
Yeah.
until, um I want to say like until like when I was like 25, which was like 4 years ago. Now you know my age. When I brought my spirituality back in a way where I really got to know myself and understand how life works,
Mhm.
um, that it's not happening to you, like these circumstances, either those rejections or whatever, like, it's so easy to just go into like, oh, they don't like me, like I'm not good enough and all that stuff. So I definitely had to go through that in order for me to get out of that,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think it was Kerry Washington that said this, but like rejection is God's protection, or
Yeah. Totally.
rejection is just redirection. So
Totally. Yeah. But it's easier
Yeah.
said than done, and it's hard in
100%.
the moment.
It's
Yeah.
harder, yeah. But like when in that moment, when that does happen though, it's a matter of like snapping out of it, like being aware that okay, cool, like I could go this path of like downhill,
Yeah.
or I could, see this from a different perspective and see the lightness of it and see how it's actually working out for me. Because maybe there is a another opportunity that's meant for me, which happened. I'll give you a scenario. I auditioned for the second Descendants, which I did, but like some backstory before was there's an actual like main cast for Descendants 2, like an ensemble, and I auditioned for that. I didn't get it. Super bummed. A couple weeks later, there was another movie that was coming to town, and it was like this Britney Spears biopic on Lifetime, and kind of just submitted for that and ended up doing that instead. And it just right, like I didn't need to be in Descendants 2, which I did after because they needed another
You ended up
um
getting to do both.
yeah, I ended up getting to do both. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like, oh, in that moment, it was so hard to see the bigger picture, like how it's
I
working out
have
for me.
the
But
same story.
do
I
okay.
auditioned for a professional production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat,
Yeah.
and I was so excited because it was at the professional theater that I've like grown up being a part of, and is like my favorite theater in the world. And Dave Scott was choreographing, so it was a hip hop production of Joseph, and I was like, this is like hip hop, and this theater is like my two loves. And so I made it to the end of auditions, and I didn't get into the ensemble, and I was devastated. And because I didn't get in, I was able to assistant choreograph a production of Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience. And so I, was doing that. And I remember after a Pinocchio rehearsal, I was leaving actually to go to another rehearsal for another production of Pinocchio I was doing. I don't recommend doing two productions of Pinocchio at the same time.
Okay.
Too much Pinocchio. Anyway, my mom was like, you got into, I'll never forget this moment. She goes, you got into Joseph. And this was months after I didn't get in. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure a girl got injured and I was like next on the list. So I
Oh,
ended up getting to assistant choreograph Pinocchio and be in Joseph
yeah.
because Joseph hadn't started. And I wouldn't have said yes to assistant choreographing if I had gotten it initially.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like,
Yeah,
forever who's watching this, like, rejection is just redirection, and maybe you'll end up getting it later on. You just never
yeah.
know.
Never know. It's such protection. But
Mhm.
but when there are those projects where you don't understand why it didn't come through, how do you go about those emotions that come up?
It just again, like kind of quieting the noise, going back into that, quieting the noise and being aware of those voices in your head that you're telling yourself and questioning that. Is that true? Is
Mhm.
that true for me? No, but I think I am good enough, and, maybe it's just not for me, and that's okay, and
Mhm.
and life moves on, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
probably gonna be better opportunities on its way, um, and if you're young, like, you're still young, you know what I mean? Like, you have so much life ahead of you to experience, so don't think that's just that one opportunity. Oh, this is one thing that I understood was, like, you don't really understand the true definition of what abundance means if you're still in that mindset of like, "Oh, but this was the job that I wanted though." But then like if you understand abundance, like there's an abundance of opportunities out there. And again, like what is meant for you will never pass you. And that's just something that it's a practice. It's a
yeah,
repetition of
yes,
a mantra or something, a phrase that you need to rewire your brain to because all these voices that in your head that are a bit negative, like those are just repetitive, phrases that you've been telling yourself all these years, which just becomes a habit. You know what I mean? So it's just to break that cycle, you
I
know?
love that you said that it is a muscle, a practice,
Mhm,
because I feel that so many things in life are literal muscles to strengthen.
mhm,
It's not like we're just brave or courageous or fearless
mhm.
24 hours of the day. literally the more that you show up, the stronger the muscle gets, and you have to keep strengthening the muscle. And then
Yes.
if you fall back into fear, just like if you stop working out, it's harder to get back up
Yes.
again. I love
Yes.
the quote. I don't want to butcher it, but I think it's courage isn't not feeling fear, it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Hmm.
Which I just love. I love so much. So, J Team, how did that come about?
The J team, it happened randomly, honestly. There were not that many opportunities go around. So I was just kind of, I don't want to say like waiting. I was just kind of just here doing my thing. And my agent calls me. She's like, hey, there's this production that's coming next year. And I would like to pitch you as an assistant choreographer
Did you
with
know Heather
Heather.
before?
Yes, I worked with Heather on that Britney Spears biopic on
Oh,
Netflix. So that's
amazing.
our
So
American.
she choreographed and you were a dancer?
Yeah, I was a dancer then.
Oh,
Mhm,
amazing. So look at
mhm.
that. If you had gotten into
Full
that descent,
circle.
oh,
I know, right? Isn't
crazy.
that
And now
crazy?
you're nominated for a freaking Emmy.
I know it's wild. It's just yeah, everything's meant to be, y'all. Everything's meant to be. Because there was a whole month of just waiting and so it's just like, oh, we probably didn't get it. And so couple of days before the new year, December 27th, get the phone call and they're like, hey, so we're on. And we're like,
Oh,
and it was just really cool. Like I love JoJo. Like my nieces love JoJo. So it was really cool kind of just being a knowing
did
that
you
I'm
watch
being
the movie with them?
yes.
Did they like it?
They loved it. And the care package, like I gave them the care package that we all got.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, they're so cute with their
Oh,
little
and you're in
bows.
it.
Yeah, that was wild. Like our execs, producers just messaged me and Heather. They're like, "Hey, would you guys like to be our judges?" It happened so randomly, but I'm like, yes, why
Uh-huh.
not? You
Yeah.
know?
That was so
And so,
fun to be filming the dance and seeing you and Heather sitting as the judges because it felt very much like rehearsal, you know? What was the hardest part of assistant choreographing? Was that your first time?
it's my second time, but like first time with a big production like
Uh-huh.
this, um, and with COVID protocols.
Yeah. Yep. So full mask, full shields.
Oh
It was
my God,
wild.
goggles. Did we have goggles for you
Gog-
guys?
Could you imagine if we had
Oh
goggles
my
and
gosh.
like,
We were thinking of putting goggles for you guys because we're like, we don't want anyone. By the way, no one had COVID throughout this whole production.
yeah, we got tested every 2 days, every three
Mhm.
days, 2 days. With the mask and the shield situation, it did not bother me at all because I was
Yeah,
like, we are in the middle of a pandemic and
yeah,
we're making a movie.
yeah.
That is beyond belief. So I was like, whatever you need me to wear or do, I'll do
Yeah.
it because this is
A full
unreal.
on like big ass suit,
Yeah. Yeah.
experimental, like scientific suit, like shout out to
Yeah.
it.
Oh my God, goggles. That would have been too much. I still to this day, looking back at that, I can't believe it happened. Like it's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, it was wild, but honestly, assisting on that project was so fulfilling. Like my heart was just so was beaming. Like just with the people, the dancers, the production, the crew,
Mhm.
and Heather being such an amazing force
Yeah.
and leader. And then with Michael, like
No.
their chemistry was so amazing, and seeing how they created all of the dance numbers. What I took away was just the relationships, the bond
Yeah.
that was made between the dancers, the cast. Like it just made it such an even more magical experience that I could never imagine.
When you watch the movie back, do you remember us like in quarantine learning the choreography?
Yeah, it was just yeah, I loved just being a part of it from like the beginning and then
Yeah.
seeing the end result and just like people don't see that. Like
Yeah.
like everyone doesn't see what happens behind the movies.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. that's why I love this industry. It's just it's so like the creative process is the most fulfilling part of it,
Yeah,
and the end product is just the cherry on top, you know?
totally.
Mhm,
Totally. So you
mhm.
recently worked on a Lionsgate film with Ashley Park.
Yeah, I
That's so
oh, that was wild
cool.
how that came about because it's funny how it came about because I I moved back to LA and then I get this email that my parents, my agents have booked me as a choreographer for this K-pop movie that's coming into town in Vancouver.
I wait, that's when we got lunch, right? And
Yeah,
you
that's
just
when I got
came back
lunch.
to Vancouver. I'm like,
Did
Joe,
I
you're
tell
here
you that I
for two
got it
minutes.
then or that I was being pitched?
Well, I remember when we got together, you had just come to LA and you're like, now I'm going back to Vancouver. I don't
Oh,
remember if
'cause
you had booked it yet, but yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah, that was wild. Yeah, so I got pitched and then I had to go through this interview process. And that was a process. Inner wise, like inner from an inner perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know, being in an interview, like damn, like I haven't been in an interview since like my first job in retail, it's like for choreographers, like your audition is an interview. It's not like how it's like as a dancer, like you go through dancer calls, but for choreographers, it's an interview. It's a
so what are
pitch.
the questions talking about like your vision for the project and everything?
Yeah, so they would kind of give you a scope of what this movie is about and what the scene that we need to choreograph and all that stuff. Maybe they'll provide you with a script, um, and you kind of just lay down like what your creative process is like, why you want the job. Um, yeah, basically they just want to get to know you. You know what I mean? Like they want to know like how you would work with this production, so again being your authentic self and showing who you are comes into play always in these
Totally.
things in life in general. So um but that was like my very first interview as like being the head choreographer of something big.
Wow. Oh my God.
So I added so much expectation on my end. So after the interview, I went into like straight imposter syndrome, like for a week. Like I didn't hear back for a week. So I I was just in
Yeah.
anxiety and like, am I worthy enough? Like, did I answer the right question? You know what I mean? Um, and so that week was just a matter of like letting go. Like I had to understand like letting go of the attachment to the scenario, the outcome that I want and whatnot, and trusting that like whatever is meant for me is meant for me,
Totally.
and trusting that I did the best that I can be and it could be in that scenario. And so until I get on a flight back to LA and my agents were like, oh, we got a phone call from this production. Oh, we'll let you know what they say. And so I was in, I was about to board onto
Uh-huh.
my flight, and I get a phone call from my agents, and they're like, so you have an offer for this
Oh,
big feature film. And I'm like, I
ah,
was dreaming. I was like, I'm already feeling the tingles again. Like
yeah,
I just felt,
the
like
best,
that
the
that
best feeling.
feeling when you accomplished something.
And then the work just begins.
Then the work just begins. Like it was very special to me because adding to the expectation of me wanting it was an all-female Asian-led cast with Ashley Park leading it.
That's
And you had Adele Lim, who's a director, her directorial debut, and she was the one of the writers of Crazy Rich Asians. And it just meant so special to me, especially, being an all Asian situation.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, no, it was just really such a moment, a
Yeah.
milestone in my
When is it
life.
coming out?
2023.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know when exactly, but it's going to be coming out. Maybe after when Emily in Paris season 3 comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I can't wait to watch it. That's amazing.
yeah, it's gonna be fun. Like the scene that we did is hilarious, and oh, it's just gonna bring a lot of joy to the world.
Oh, I love. What advice would you give your younger self?
Hmm. I would tell my younger self to just shine so bright and don't care what anyone thinks. Just live in your truth and what makes you happy and follow your heart and your instincts and trust that it's always taking you to where you need to be.
Mm, beautiful. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Well, I always end on this question. What do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy, I want my legacy to be something so grand and not just in a 3D way of the accomplishments that I've done, but more so of the connections that I have made, the hearts that I have touched through my creativity, through my words, through my energy, even if it's through one person or a million people, like that's my legacy, the hearts that I've touched throughout my life. So
Oh, beautiful.
yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna cry.
Thank you so much for doing this. You're amazing.
You're amazing. I'm so glad like our lives have aligned to this moment, to J Team and to what could be next. You know what I mean? Like what? This is just the beginning, and I'm excited to share this life with you and whoever comes into our lives as well. So
Yay. How can people keep up with you and your art and your brain?
yes, you can follow me on Instagram, Joe Tuliao, and just follow my journey of love and lightheartedness, fun, crazy, weird, grande. I don't know. Just follow me there, and let's see what life brings.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.